What did you do after leaving the floor?
The pit was still going around and everybody, was still doing both, waiting for Judgment Day, so to say. Some people not thinking it would come. Most of us, I think most people did. And I thought, well, I've just had, several great years in a row and everything's pretty solid and I know it's going to happen. I might as well do it now. Don't wait for desperation. Do it now. I went off the floor. I had a terminal in the city and in my home in Chicago and in Florida, wherever I went, I had somewhere to trade, and I would do okay, but I could never replicate it. And then, of course, what I always say to my wife is, unfortunately, I really believed in electronic trading and I believed in it way too early because it wasn't safe. And I didn't know, I had a terrible error. It was millions of dollars. And I wish it was an error where I was wrong the market. I could take that. Any trader could take that. I got out of control and I bought too many. I sold too many. Happens to the best of us. You don't lose your career from it if you're any good, but it happens. But I was trading and I was having really probably the worst day of my career. And I'm close. I think it was probably down $200,000 maybe. Absolutely the worst day of my career. And my firm called me up. I had, owned seats, had money. They were just want to make sure I'm okay. And they're like, well, if you'll lose another 40 or 50,000, that's it. We'll call it for you. I'm like, fine. At this point, I'm doomed. Unbeknownst to me, everyone at the firm kind of went home. No one told me. And now I'm trying to get out. And the market never went anywhere, but I'm clicking and clicking and clicking and clicking. And the exchange wanted it to be a fat finger incident. That would sound better. Except I wasn't accumulating a position anywhere. In, out, both. I was hitting anything. There was actually a button on the Globex machines that said hit bid and offer, which maybe did something to make them spoof the market or something. My computer completely froze. And I, called, nobody's answering. I restarted my computer and it took every single order. And I think it traded 80 or 90,000 by 80 or 90,000 contracts. And I lost about $6 per contract. So it was like $5 million. And I wrote him the check the next day. Not fun. But, a trader should be honorable. And I assumed it was all my fault. I later learned it wasn't. And part of the clue of that was I'd had some exposure on TV. So I was getting phone calls from all kinds of reporters. It was a fortune to me. I don't want to, change my life in lots of ways in reevaluating things. But it's not a fortune to a newspaper or to Forbes or to the Wall Street Journal. And yet they were all calling me. They wanted to know if the system was safe as we were going public in, a couple of months, 3 to 6 months we were going public. I was a good soldier. I just said, yeah, it's great. It's fine. It was all on me, all my bad. I probably shouldn't have done that. Not because of the system, for myself. I probably should have put the money in escrow and say, let's break this all up and see exactly what happened. The Merc had its ways of letting you know that if you open your mouth, there will be trouble for you and yours. And I absolutely got one of those calls. So, one of those not recorded. Hi, Scott. I know we're buddies and I have a great idea for you. The best thing you could do is nothing. Like I said, I was a soldier, so that's what I did.
How did the loss of the floor affect people?
We can travel back to the 1800s, the 1920s, and when markets crash, I always said the two reasons nobody went flying out windows in 87 was most of the traders did okay. It was the public that got killed, and we had hurricane glass, couldn't open the windows. But I do think, I know from my dad, unfortunately, he took his life, like so many others that I knew. We were averaging several a year, and then it went up from that a little bit, and now it's abated a little bit. But I think for my dad, because I had watched my dad dig himself out of some pretty big holes, really, so when this tragedy happened, I was fully waiting to see, what is he? Oh, what's happening here? Oh my God. And the truth is, he had a little bit of money. He owed nobody anything. And I think the combination of that, he had a heart attack, and knowing he was the ultimate optimist, as long as he could walk on that floor. And I think that trading on the computer made him really feel worthless. made him really feel like I'm not going to be able to continue to support us. I'm not going to continue to be able to earn money. And I think that those three things, having dug out of holes before and lived that life, he was more up and down. I was kind of more of a Pete Rose everyday earner. So he was, like if you're studying psychology, it's invariable response. He didn't know what months of the year he would make money. So like if I didn't make money for 2 weeks, I think something's wrong. And he might not make money for 3 or 4 months and go, well, this year's year will be made in May, and that's how some of the agriculture guys thought. And so I think he kept looking for that. I remember him one day, and traders always keep it light. I had rented a space and we had an office with a bunch of guys and computers trading. And my dad, maybe lost $1,000 or something on the trade. He was mad at himself and he threw the mouse at the wall and it shattered. And like everybody in the office said, well, that's great. How are you going to get out now? And so that was, I think in that period of time, he just felt like his usefulness was over, which is just tragic because it wasn't. And it wasn't for any of these guys. We lost so many good people. I was keenly aware that could happen to many more, and I'm still aware of it. I mean, I remember I forgot who it was, but there was a young guy who, in the pit lost $4 or $5 million and walked in front of a train. And somewhere you just want to say, man, go bankrupt, start again, whatever, work at Walmart, do whatever you have to do. And you see all kinds of those. I see guys that I know that used to make a ton of money that are waiters now. And I respect that. Doing what you need to do to take care of your family, what's wrong with that?
Could the exchange have done more to help these people?
Part of the attraction of the men and few women in those days that were trading were such individual spirits. They could barely tell their friends that they weren't doing well. So I don't know how you could have intervened. And especially I think mine was one of the first generations where I had some really good friends that if they were in trouble, we would talk about it and it'd be fine. And I watched my dad and one of his best friends, they both ended up taking their lives. Two men, both huge mentors to me. And these guys were both in trouble. And what I wish is that they had the ability to talk to each other about it. Misery loves company for a reason. And it's not always that reason of I want to make you miserable, which is how we say it. Sometimes if somebody's going through something that you're going through, it could help. And so maybe if I would suggest anything to an exchange then or even now, it's even harder with machines, but maybe offer a couple of lectures or classes on the dangers of that, on the dangers of, hey, these aren't really transferable skills. Hey, you might make a ton of money here, but the world isn't going to pay anything like that. Money's important. There's all kinds of ways to make it. And killing yourself, what's the old saying? It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. When I think of the things those men missed in their personal lives, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, good times in the world, and I'm like, for what? Because of the markets, that always seemed silly to me. And what's interesting though is everything that I lived through, which is a lot of good, mostly good, and a lot of bad and intense moments, I still love the place. You could make an argument it took my father from me. It took some of my fortune from me. You could make all these arguments. And yet I look back on it and I loved every day of it. What I learned is it's the institution that I don't love. The people within the institution I loved. And as the institution got bigger, it absolutely got colder. No fault to some of the guys that are still on the board now. I'm sure if I called them, they'd answer. And I'm sure if I saw them in a bar, we'd sit down and have a drink. But that's not the same as when you're on the floor and you can see your governor and go, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? How many guys are going to be in trouble and make that phone call? Not many.
Were there people on the floor who had a gambling problem?
I know guys that would trade as hard as they could all week and then go home and bet every football game and every basketball game because they just needed action. Whereas a guy like me, I'd go to Vegas and they'd say, hey, you're a trader. You're not even gambling that big. I'm like, hey, you're the house. I gamble when I'm the house. I do not think trading is gambling. I really don't. I think it's calculated risk taking, it's probabilities, and obviously you can be wrong. But after that, it attracts gambling. The action attracts gambling. So while the best, I've never seen a gambler end up leaving with money, whether it's at a craps table, a blackjack table, or the S&P 500. Those guys go out fairly fast. And sometimes you'll see guys with family money that came down and can afford to lose $1 million a year and it doesn't matter, but they're gambling. But the best traders that I knew I would call them really conservative investors. I would call them, conservative men in their lives, because you can't live that full crazy life. Like my father-in-law had a very boring job, so he loved Las Vegas. I get it. I was full of action 5 days a week, more than anybody could need, as much as I wanted. So I wasn't looking for action outside of the exchange.
Did you witness any illegal practices?
Everybody wants to know about cocaine and heroin and pills. And what I always liked saying was, yes, you could find those things. You could also find amoxicillin. You want to go to the doctor and you've got a sore throat. Same guy that's stealing the Vicodin from Walgreens is stealing amoxicillin. I don't know. But they had everything. You could pretty much get whatever you wanted. My dad was a great mentor for that. What my dad said to me was, listen, kid, you're an actual, I don't know what the SIBO, what the Board of Trade guys call themselves, but we were Merc jerks. And my dad, with love in his heart, said, kiddo, you're a Merc jerk. And he goes, I believe in you. I think you're going to be good. And he said, but you're going to have some choices to make. He goes, you're going to make the money of a brain surgeon. I really believe that. He said, but then you're going to have to decide. You could stay downtown and drink all day and get home at 7 and give your family a good life, and everybody else comes home at 7 and you'll be one of the dads. Or you can remember what happened to me, because one of the reasons beyond money was he said that he never saw my brother and I. He went to work before we woke up. He came home when we were sleeping. If you want, you can be done trading, home before your kids are home from school, never miss a little league game, a dance recital. You can do that all, but I can't tell you which way to go on. I was, lucky. I had a lot of mentors like that. And I had a wife that was very aware of the business and knew I was done at noon. Don't stay there till 7. It did let me be a good father. That business enabled me to make a great living and never miss anything. And so how can you not be grateful for that?
What did you do after leaving the floor?
I used to go off and give speeches on this stuff. I had a radio show for a little while giving advice on financial products and stuff. And years ago, I bought a home in Florida. So the kids grew up and got married. So we came down here and I opened a property management company. We took care of, maybe 150 homes, 150 homes. Always sticks out in my head was, guy was a big house, big, beautiful Florida house, a multi-million-dollar home. And this guy says, we're talking about my former life. And he's like, well, this has to be great for you. I mean, what you did was such high stress. I go, are you kidding me? I go, that was easy. I'm in charge of your house now. And if it breaks, I have to pay you. Forget it. This is way worse. The end of trading, you're done. The end of watching somebody's house, it could break tonight when no one's there. So there was no easiness about it. It also gave me a tremendous amount of respect for people that open businesses. And I sold that last year. And right now, I'm really not doing much. I mean, I'm looking for something else. I'm too young to do nothing. I believe in an active brain. I believe in, keeping everything moving and working. But I know I will never get back to my first love. But I'd like to find something that I love. And fortunately, I don't have to make tons of money doing it. I never considered the road less traveled till I was 60, because the Merc was just in my blood. So I never was like, well, maybe I'll be a doctor or a lawyer or a trader. No, I was going to be a trader from 5th grade, fourth grade. And so it became interesting to think, what would I have done if there wasn't a Merc? Where would what would have interested me? So I'm trying to figure that out now.